All right, Panther fans. So as promised, we've got another huge guest here. Absolutely, and just absolutely just speechless to do this one. So this is all Stu's doing. You guys know Stu knows everybody. Next week is Wayne Gretzky, but this week he's got another good guest on here with me. Stu, go ahead and take it away, bud.
All right, Eric. Well, for all you Panther fans, you wanted the best? We got you the best. I don't mean kiss. I guess out of all the Panther people that I know, this guy is the one that I know the longest. He and I have been friends for a really long time. We've talked about the Panthers in good times and bad. When I work for the team, one thing I always look forward to is coming in the morning and have a quick 15-minute chat. He was the radio voice, and now he's the color commentator for the team. The one and only Red Deer himself, Randy Moller.
Hey guys, how are you?
Oh man, we're doing good. We're doing good. Thank you for coming out, buddy. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's an honor for me to not only be on with you guys, but also to talk Panther hockey. You know me. I'm a lifer, and I love the team and love South Florida, and to be able to talk Panthers, especially right now, is pretty exciting time. So
yeah, absolutely. You know, the first 4.5 years of my channel, there was plenty to complain about. You know what I mean? And like the last couple of years, you know, everybody got used to watching my videos where there'd always be something to complain about. And now I just like, it took me a while to get used to it. It's like, it's all good. Everything's good. Everything is good now. So I kind of had to change my shtick. Now, before we get into the meat and bones and everything, I've got a question for you. Now this one, if you have to go off the record on this one, I completely understand. But what's better, mom's meatloaf or grandma's cookies?
Ma's meatloaf. You know,
No,
I get asked that all the time. On the meatloaf, or some of my favorites with the going back to the goal calls, because just a quick history. You know, the reason I started doing this was the suggestion of Dan Le Batard, because when for a brief couple of years we were on 790 The Ticket on a radio broadcast, and Dan Le Batard, who was just starting a show, his show would come right into our broadcast, and then in the agreement we had a crossover for 10 or 15 minutes. And if anybody knows Dan, I mean, he tells it the way it is. And when we first started this, he said to me, Moller, I'm not really into hockey. The team's not very good yet. We've got to do this crossover. I don't want to talk about who's going to be playing on the third pair defense that night, or who's the backup goaltender for St. Louis that night, or whatever. Let's do something fun. And at that time, they were incorporating where people were calling in with different, pop cultures and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And he asked me if some of their suggestions after the Panthers scored a goal, would I yell out, some of these sayings? And I said, sure, no problem. And that's how it started. So that's how it started. And then it just took off from there. And we had so much fun with it. I always had a couple of rules though. Number one is nobody takes it seriously. The other thing too, I wasn't going to be political or anything, controversial and that I just wasn't into it. I didn't need to do it, and I just have fun with it. And then the other one is once I did especially the goal calls, that I would never do it again, and I would it'd be once and done. And and that was so it was always new, and I think fans always enjoy the new one. The one that stands out, you're asking me about Ma the Meatloaf, and and that is at that time, very quickly, and I don't know if you remember it, Britney Spears was going through all kinds of issues. Remember, she cut all of her hair off, and she was having, let's just say she was having some issues. Okay. Yeah. You can expand from there. And there was a viral video out of this young man or whatever, and he was bawling his eyes out, and he was yelling, "Leave Brittany alone!" And so I incorporated that one into a goal call, and that got a lot of that got a lot of hits and stuff. People really like that. So I think the other thing too was I am such. It's not that I'm not a fan. I'm just not very knowledgeable about like hip hop. So when I would do a hip hop free, pants on the ground, and that kind of stuff, it would be extra funny because people that know me know that I'm not a rapper or whatever. So it's like it'd be like my grandmother doing it. She had no knowledge of it. So they would make these suggestions for these goal calls and from rap songs and all that kind of stuff. I had no idea who the artist is or what the song is or whatever. So that just played, and I would just let it fly.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I would screw it up as well. I wouldn't get it proper or whatever. And they seem to, the fans really enjoy that. And because then Levitard would play them the next day, and they would cut them and play them the next day on his show. And that's really how it exploded in that. We had a lot of fun with it. And as you mentioned, at that time, the Panthers were struggling. I mean, it was a few of the low years.
How diplomatic. They were struggling.
Yeah. So we had some fun. We had some fun with it.
Yep.
All time number one for me. He goes top shelf where Mrs. Moller keeps the peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was always a staple, and that one, that one I had that one before we even started all these pulp culture sayings and that kind of stuff. I always had that one, so that one was repeated a number of times.
Right.
There's a YouTube video. If you guys do a search, Randy Moller goal calls.
Well, there's 4 or 5 of them.
Yep. They're all over. So to talk a little bit about hockey in a general sense before we get to the Panthers specifically, obviously, and this is a question that really interests me, being that I've got a YouTube channel, and especially for the first 4 years, my stick was kind of, I bitched about everything. I'm a lifetime fan. I threw rats at Miami Arena, but it just turned out I would start complaining about things, and I started getting all these messages from people saying, "Oh man, you're saying this stuff we can't say." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm just curious if you can give us some perspective on the differences as a player back when you played. I mean, there wasn't anybody on YouTube calling you out, and there wasn't the constant media attention, everything, and the traveling when you're on the road was all different. To where now, I mean, I literally have on my wall, I have a cereal box. I used to have one for Magnuson, but they sold that one. But the players either get puppets or cereal boxes. And so, like, there was one particular time where Yandel and Ekblad were together, and they were really struggling. And I used to get so upset because they would, for me, I would say, they're using their sticks like magic wands. So I've got a cereal box with Anna and Elsa it's a frozen cereal box. And I got it right here. I've got, 3 and 5 for Anna and Elsa. So I guess the question is in the perspective of how it used to be for you, but do you think that kind of stuff gets to the players now, or do they roll with it and contrasting and comparing to how it used to be?
Fair question. It is, let me put it this way. Whether you're a hockey player or any other sports, or you're a media celebrity, a musician, the game has changed, and you have to understand that. And players I know in NHL and all the sports, they have people especially from the league. In the old days when I played, they used to come and the NHL security would say, "Okay, guys, if you're at a party." This guy name was Frank Torpy. I'm an ex-FBI agent. I work for the National Hockey League, and he would talk to us in the locker room. If you're at a party and they are serving cocaine at that party, I suggest that you leave that party. Right. And that was basically the message, right?
That was
back then, stay away from drugs and that. Now
Yeah.
They've got guys that are coming in that people that come in and train them how to speak to the media, how to get their thoughts across, and also the do's and don'ts and that of social media. And they're and they really understand it. These players are smart and that too. I'm glad that there's not an overabundance of players that have gotten themselves into trouble because of social media.
Right.
Although we all get tempted all the time, including me, that hey red deer. I mean, and that sometimes I'm ready, boy. I want to blast somebody back or
delete.
Yeah, no, I don't even go there because you can't win. But it is part of the culture now, and it is part of the profession. And to answer your question, I don't think players like it. That social media, everybody has a platform and they can criticize, critique the players play game by game and what they're wearing and what band they like or whatever, and everybody's got an opinion in that. I think though that they understand it. They understand that it is part of being a professional athlete, part of being a professional hockey player. Oh boy, I'm so glad that when I played back in the days when I played or whatever, the one thing that would have killed me was the camera phone.
The phone.
And these players, especially, think about it now. And I'm going to knock on wood. We've got a fairly young team. And going back, we had lots of young players playing in Florida.
Yeah.
The party scene of South Beach and Fort Lauderdale and that. But guess what? I'll say we've been all very fortunate, and the team's been very fortunate, but they've had, for the most part, very good character players that have stayed away from some of those ills that and some of those temptations that are out there. Because even though it's not Montreal or Toronto or Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, or in some of these markets, that when Aaron Ekblad walks down Los Olas, he's going to be recognized.
Exactly.
And he takes that responsibility to make sure that he conducts himself as all of our players. And I'm very proud of that because they're still young players and young people make mistakes. We've all made mistakes in that. And so they understand it. They know that they have to a little bit have their guard up. They've got to behave themselves because everybody's got a camera phone, everybody's got a microphone, and everybody's got a Twitter account and social media, what have you. And boy, oh boy, if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, it is going to be all over Twitter and pictures and everything else. So they take it very seriously, and I give them full credit. They really handle themselves out in public as gentlemen, and that bodes well for the team and for the sport.
Yeah.
And
One thing
that, I was a stick boy for the Islanders, and I remember, these kids are making, $3, $4, $5, $6, $10 million a year. I mean, look at Ekblad. What was he, 21 when he signed his $8 million a year contract? I remember Denny Potvin telling me he made $150,000 a year, and that was big money back then in the 70s. So it's just amazing to me how, a 21-year-old kid comes to South Florida, gets a contract like that, lives in the land of, sunshine and golf courses and beaches, and still has to focus on doing his job and, working out and just eating right. And, again, it just amazes me, the maturity level. And you're right, Randy, it's the character. I'm sure when, the scouting staff and Mr. Zito is, checking these young players out, these draft picks, and the young players that he's getting, I'm sure character comes into play number one.
Yeah. Well, and we're fortunate, and I don't want to comment on other sports, but I think we're fortunate that hockey players in general, they can't get to the level that they play at it in the NHL unless they've had a good upbringing and they've got some pretty grounded and morals and education and guidance from parents, teachers, and especially coaches. I know from myself. I mean, I had a junior coach, John Chapman, that I was pretty raw and I was pretty wild in that. And he got the message across to all of us that if you don't abide by the law and by what society expects of you, you're not only going to make it in hockey, but you're not going to make it in life as well. And you learn those lessons very well. And by the time we get these young players into South Florida in a Panther uniform, most of them have really matured and had the guidance and know what's right and what's wrong. I guess that's the best way to put it. So we're very fortunate, and I just hope that continues, because out there in society, there's a lot of temptations and things that these players need to stay away. And for the most part, and from what I hear, they do, and good for them. And guess what, guys? And guess what? There's so much money to be made. Why would you ever screw it up by doing something stupid that could, justify your contract being annoyed or whatever? And they know that. And these agents are in constant contact with them as well, with guidance on what they need to do and what to stay away from.
Right. And the whole, the instant, what you're talking about with the smartphones and the camera phones, I mean, it affects the franchises too. I mean, back in the day, you wouldn't have had a picture blowing up of Gallant at the curb with the cab like that whole thing happened. Or I just finished making a video just now about Fleury being traded without getting noticed. And so that's another thing where that kind of stuff wouldn't have been just out there in the public just like that, for everybody to kind of, parse before they even, they don't have the story. So,
and you know what, to add to that too, I want to tell you a little bit of a background. When you talk about, not only social media, but media in general and the TV stations and that. When I played in Buffalo, I was in Buffalo for 2.5 years. Buffalo's got one newspaper. It's the Buffalo News. There's no competition or nothing. So they had a couple of columnists there, and it was almost unfair, because if they liked you, they would, in their columns, there would be positive for you. And if they were positive, then 95% of the fans, they took that as gospel, that, oh, Randy Moller's a good player or whatever, and they believed it. On the other side, if there was something negative that they wrote about you, that you weren't playing well and all that, oh boy, because there was only one kind of media outlet, and that was it, one newspaper in Buffalo. So it can help a lot of careers. It can damage a lot of careers as well. The influence of media and social media.
Yeah. So let's get to the Panthers a little bit now. Now, the first question I have for you is from a fan's perspective. You see it all over social media, and I absolutely agree. It seems like every single thing Zito does just literally turns to gold. And so my question for you is that, the biggest three deals, like the Bennett deal, the Matheson for Hornquist deal, and the one we just did with Reinhardt and getting rid of Stroman without having to give up any asset, any roster players. The fan base is, do you think that those deals are as lopsided in our favor and as good, solid in our favor as the fan base makes them out to be? Or is it sort of just like, we're just so excited about being good for the first time and forever that the deals aren't quite as lopsided as we might make them out to be?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's always two sides. There's always two teams that are having to make these transactions. I mean, Anton Stroman, veteran defenseman, he's a right-handed shot, and that's a commodity. Arizona has come out and said that that's what they were looking for. Now, our fan base may think, oh, wow, we were able to move Anton Stroman. Maybe he wasn't fitting in the future because of this young core. But there was somebody out there. You can't make a move with nobody. You can't make a move with yourself and that. So as far as the Florida Panthers fan base, I think, are very positive on that move, talking about the Anton Stroman move. you got to think that there's the fan base and especially the hockey operations in Arizona, they're very happy that they've got a veteran defenseman there to help them. He's on a 1-year deal, and they're
Right.
trying to rebuild there, and they believe that he can help their young defensemen. So there's always but I to back up what you're saying, Bill Zito, since he's arrived here, some of the moves. I mean, Gustav Forsland, they got him off of waivers and they drove 12 hours down here and jumped onto the ice and performed. And what a deal that was. And he got rewarded for it. Good for him. The Verhaeghe deal to get him at 2 years at $1 million.
$1 million.
It's and that. So yeah. So, and the Hornquist deal, I mean, it goes down. You're absolutely right. Bill Zito has been batting 1,000 here ever since he's arrived as a general manager, and I know Bill a little bit, and he just I don't know, but my observation is he really has a different look, a different outlook on evaluating players, and right now he is just spot on. Absolutely spot on identifying the needs of this hockey club and be able to pull these transactions off or whatever. Good on him. Congratulations. I never thought, going back to last year, and you take a look now, the way our team looks right now today, I didn't think it would be possible because of salary cap implications and no movement contracts and that it's not easy, but he has done it, and good on him, and good for the Panthers, and most importantly, and I've always said this, good for the Florida Panther fans.
Yeah,
these fans down here, we saw a good snippet of what this team can do, finishing 4th best record last year in the NHL. Only 5 regulation losses at home last year. It was exciting. It was fast. It was aggressive. This is the team that we're going to have now. And I'm just happy for the fans because they really have enjoyed the brand of hockey and the success that they've had on the ice.
You know, Randy, we get disrespected all the time by other fans in the league. And I mean, you look at Game 5 against Tampa, that place was rocking.
Yeah.
Rocking. So don't tell me we don't have passionate fans. We do.
Oh,
we
absolutely.
Just had a lot to cheer about, in the past. But, this year, the puzzle, I don't know if it's 100% complete. I'm thinking maybe one solid top 4 D-man, if that can be worked out. But we have the best team on paper. I think the puzzle is put together for the run. And I know nothing would make you and I more happy than to see us, finally lift the cup. I mean, we know each other 27 years, and we've been through a lot of downs, and it's really nice to have a lot of ups lately. And, again, we've talked about it on the channel. You put Aaron Ekblad in that lineup against Tampa, and it's a different series.
Well, and what's happened now, and you guys realize it, and I think most fans realize it now, Florida has become a destination, and not because of the beaches and the golf courses and the weather and what have you, which it was before in that aspect. It's now a destination. Players want to come down here. They want to play with Alexander Barkov and Aaron Ekblad and Jonathan Huberdeau. They know. And the team has got success, and it's a destination now, and you don't have to convince. And we'll see what happens as the Panthers go through the free agency part of it as well, because we're not having to overpay just to convince players to come down here.
Yes.
And a lot of them came down, unfortunately, just to retire even before they stopped playing. And those days are long gone now. This is now a destination, and players want to come here and win and be a part of a winning environment that has a legitimate shot at being a Stanley Cup finalist. And that's all a player wants.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I've talked about since Zito came in. It's just like before he came in, it just seemed like we were on this endless wheel of signing older guys to bad contracts and then having to give up younger assets to get out of the bad contracts. And it just consistently happened. And to what you said about how Zito is just becoming this master at targeting players. You look at how Huberdeau was playing last season before Bennett got here. And when Bennett got here, I mean, it was just completely different player. And I mean, I'm a huge Huberdeau fan. I mean, when people ask me, you know, who I would rather have, Huberdeau or Barkov, I think for me personally, when both guys are playing as aggravated as they can play, because you need to be aggravated to play hockey, I like Huberdeau. But when Bennett came in, it just upped his game, and they just meshed so well that it just, you know, and when Zito signed Bennett, the fan base was kind of like, who, what, huh? And then after about 2 games, we were like, oh, okay, now we get it. And, you know, I talked about it on the channel where the fan base, we haven't had a number of years where we've had consistently proper management. There's always been, we've either been, you know, trying to get out of a mess or getting ourselves into a mess. And which brings me to the couple of years that we have had success after, you know, 96 and after 16, where both years we kind of, you know, after the 16 run, we kind of made the changes during the off season. But after the 96 run, we come up the next season and we lead the league in points. And then I want to get your thoughts on this, because I always joke about this, but to me, this is the thing that started the downslide of the franchise. And that's Barnes and Woolies for Wells.
The curse trade?
Yeah, the Barnes and Woolies for Wells. I can still hear Neil Rogers screaming about that one the day it happened. And we were just now, in my opinion, as a franchise, recovering from that move.
Yeah, that was a tough one back then. But you know, you're trying to predict how 21, 22-year-old hockey players are going to be, and that. But yeah, that one didn't age very well.
No,
it didn't. But you know what I'm really happy about, and you touched on it a little bit, is you take a look now at the Panthers, their core. All these players are 23, 24, 25, 26 years old.
Right.
That's it. The core is that's the age of our core of our hockey club, the majority of our core. And they're just going into their prime years in the NHL. And what's really exciting, I think the fans are excited, is they're all going to be together for the next 4 or 5 years to try and do something.
Right.
And it's not a one hit. Oh, let's load up like Detroit did years ago with Brett Hall and Brendan Shanahan, and they brought in Dominic Hasek, and you remember that? And it was like, let's just go for it. And they had all these veteran players that they had the success, they won. Yep. But what the Panthers are doing is be able to have this core and have them at the age that they're at. That bodes well, and that's what I'm really excited about, because this isn't just a 1 year, let's go for it, guys.
Right.
Kumbaya. No, this team's going to be together for a lot of years, and that's the biggest thing that I'm excited about. Right.
So I wanted to get your opinion on the current roster, because I made a video yesterday after we re-signed Bennett, and we know we're going to sign Reinhart and everything. And what happened was the night before during the live stream, I just verbally gave the 12 guys that I thought we would ice if nobody left. And I realized that after I put Lomberg and Marchman on the fourth line, that I had left out Hornquist. And I was thinking, we got one too many guys unless something's going to happen or Lomberg's going to sit. Do you get any sense at all? And I know you can't divulge anything, but obviously I don't see how we could add any more forwards. Do you get any sense at all that we're just like complete, this is the package, and yeah, there may be a guy or two that's going to be riding the bench that should or could have kind of be in the lineup? Or do you think we might still be looking at moving one guy?
I believe now that we're pretty well set at the forward position. I would be surprised, in my personal opinion, I would be surprised if we didn't add at least one more defenseman
Right.
And I'm sure that's where the Panthers will be active, free agency. And that, other than that, though, I think they're pretty well set. And you have to be careful and watch that salary cap. It's not only this year. These hockey people, they've got to project as best they can in year 3, 4, and 5
Right.
years out, and that where they're going to be. We all know that the Panthers will with the Barkov deal and the Reinhardt deal. I mean, we got Jonathan Huberdeau that's coming up as well.
Exactly.
Before we know it, guys, in a couple of years, I mean, it's going to be Aaron Ekblad, and then it's going to be Mackenzie Weegar again, and that.
Right.
So they do their homework, and I think you don't want to, even though the Panthers have made some phenomenal moves, and they're younger, and I think they're more skilled and they're faster, and that's going to bode well for their success. You don't want to overdo it and overcook it right now, because it's going to cost you down. They have to be aware what they need to do next year and the year after and the year after that.
Right.
Absolutely. It's a science. And, I think it's Braden Birch, right? Is our guy that analyzes all the contracts?
Yeah, well, there's a number of them. They've got Bill Zito's really built a wonderful hockey operation, and that includes Roberto Luongo as well as a advisor to the general manager, and Lou's a very smart guy. And I think they really work well together. And I think Joel Quenneville is overly excited about getting the training camp and that. But to continue to answer your question about adding another forward or whatever, look at the teams that had gone through the wars of the playoffs, and it's tough. It's really tough, man. You need depth. You need players that can step in and not just to fill roles and that. You need players that depth that are going to help. There's going to be injuries, guys. We saw it. Aaron Ekblad went down, and that you've got to have some depth in there, because the last thing you need is one major injury, and all of a sudden your season starts to spiral out of control. And I think the Panthers have set themselves up very positively. They've got enough players, and we haven't even talked about like Denisenko and some of these younger players, and that tip that had an opportunity in that. So it takes an army, as they say. It takes an army to win a Stanley Cup, and I think the Panthers are definitely on the right track. I'm just giddy. I can't believe I've been doing my own notes and trying to make up my lines and deep air. That's what makes it fun. Now, to add to that, as we're doing this right now, I mean, Suter that just got bought out of
Minnesota.
Yeah.
And that, there's rumors floating around that he wants a 4-year deal, and that. I'm sure that Bill Zito and his group, they've kicked the tires. They've had their conversations internally in that, whether it happens or not or whatever, but that's how they go about their business. How are we going to improve today that's not going to affect us negatively in the future? Like you were talking about with some of the contracts that got ourselves in a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
And then where are we going to come out, and who's going to replace who at this certain time, and that. It's a real science. And I think it's very interesting. I'd love to be in those war rooms. I'd love to be in those meetings and that, but you can see the fruition of what those meetings have and the moves that they've made so far.
Yeah.
Let me make a comment on the Suter thing, because I was one of the, big guy on Suter. But you're right. More than 2 years is not a good deal for a guy that's 36 years old. So I've kind of switched my focus now on Jake McCabe, who's a UFA out of Buffalo. A lot of guys are shooting at me. Well, he sucks. Well, I don't know how he sucks, but obviously Zito's a very good evaluator. Getting back to what you said about losing Ekblad, I mean, Forsling stepped up, and everybody knows, Eric will tell you, Forsling this and Forsling that, and Forsling's great, blah, blah, blah. And the kid came through. It's just that we didn't have, that third pairing kind of let us down. Nudavara didn't step up. Who else? Kerstad didn't step up. But, we have an abundance of players. We have a lot of assets. But it's going to be curious. But at this point, I would not go. Somebody's going to give Studer his 4-year deal, and good for him. I was thinking, on the other hand, the guy's just made $90 million with his 9 years at Minnesota, right? So I've come, I've made a joke like, what's another couple of million to these guys? They want to win a cup. Do you think that a guy like that would sign a 2-year deal for maybe $4 million or $5 million for the chance of winning a cup, knowing that the Panthers on paper have probably the best forward core, probably if Bob plays his game, the best 2 goalie tandem. We obviously have Ekblad and Uyghur. We got, pretty good defense. What do you think about a player taking a haircut to come to a team that's got a shot? I mean, Suter's never won the Stanley Cup. What do you think, Rand?
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you don't want to. I don't really want to get into specific players that I think that the team may be targeting, but going back to what I said before, that this has become a destination now, and players and agents and that they know, hey, I can get us a conversation with the Florida Panthers. Would you like to play with Alexander Barkov and Aaron Ekblad? And this is a team on the rise that it could be a real contender or whatever. And that's what really interests players, and especially players that are veteran players that have never won. They want to win. Guys want to win. They're already well compensated, and good for them. The missing thing that a lot of players never get an opportunity is to win and win that Stanley Cup. And so I think the Panthers are in a good position going into free agency to be able to have conversations, whichever way they go. It wouldn't take much to convince a veteran player to come down here to be the final piece of the puzzle in order to hopefully push the Panthers over the edge. And that we've seen it with other teams that have won. St. Louis did it. Tampa has done it. And I think the Panthers, and good for them, they still have some wiggle room in the salary cap. They've set themselves up perfectly. So let's see what happens.
Yeah,
that's why I call Bill Zito the magician. And it's just amazing that he keeps pulling rabbits out of a hat. Who would think that we could have 3 out of the top 4 draft picks in the 2000?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Right. And to speak to what you said about the depth, Randy, and the injuries and everything, it's a perfect point, because game 2, when Bennett was suspended, Q obviously didn't feel comfortable enough to fill in. We went 7D. So even at that point, he felt more comfortable with going with 7D than maybe putting in a Gusev or one of the younger forwards. But real quick here, I watched a couple of your interviews, and I've heard this multiple times about how you're into cooking. And I own the rare distinction of having gone to chef school kind of twice, because when I was in the military, that was my profession. I went to chef school, but it's the military, so are you really a chef? And then when I went to massage therapy school, it was at a college where the massage therapy classes were right next door to the chef's classes. So, and the chefs were all about getting a massage. So after our classes were over, I'd head over to the chef's class for a couple of hours and learn while I was working on them. So I got to go to chef school twice. So the question I have for you is, what's the specialty at the Moller household? Because I love to cook, but if I have to shop for the ingredients, it's over, because I want it done quickly. You know what I mean? If somebody puts it all in front of me, I'm good to go, and I will make a masterpiece. But if I have to shop for myself, it's going to be macaroni and cheese and tuna fish, because it's quick. So what's your specialty?
My wife, I come from a family, and my wife's family, great cooks and wonderful cooks and that. My wife is a great cook, but I do most of the cooking, and that because I enjoy it. I just made, it's actually right on the oven. I actually just made and put it together just a little while ago, because I had a couple hours or whatever. I just made chicken cacciatore. I make it from scratch, and I have my own recipe and do it the way I want to do it in that. I love to cook. Gumbo. I make gumbo. It takes me 6 hours to make the gumbo because I take the time to make the roux, and that's the most important thing.
Yep.
And all fresh ingredients and that. A lot of Italian dishes. I've been known to. I just barbecued on Sunday. Barbecued a steak using charcoal. Never gas grills. I always use the real thing, and that. I like the barbecue. Lasagnas. I mean, all kinds of pasta, chicken. I can do it all. I can make pretty well everything. I'm not really a baker. My wife does that. It's just too tedious for me for baking with all the, because you have to measure. I never measure anything.
Yeah, I just throw it in.
Those are kind of the dishes that I make. Gumbo, chicken parm, lasagna. I just made chicken cacciatore. I can do clams, fettuccine, and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoy it. It's really relaxing for me. It's kind of like a hobby for me in that I just wish that I didn't eat as much as I cook, because that can be very detrimental when you're eating all food. I don't want to look like Chef Paul.
I can hear you, because Stu and I have the same disease as you, which is old age, and my birthday.
And that's the thing too. A lot of what I watch on television, unfortunately, if it's not sports, and that I watch cooking shows and shows on cooking and that restaurant shows and that kind of stuff. That's what I'm really interested in. I'd love to go to Italy. I'd love to go to Greece. I'd love to go to France and that, but that's the one thing that I'm very appreciative of with the profession that I have, and be able to travel with a team and go to these amazing cities. I take advantage of it. Believe me, Stu knows that I go to all these restaurants and going to Boston and going to have the oysters on the half shell and lobster and everything. And in Chicago is such a great food scene there in Chicago with all the different ethnic groups, and same with LA and Vancouver up in Canada. And it's just, that's what I enjoy doing. I like going to different places and sampling different foods. And then I come home and then a lot of times try to replicate it and make it on my own.
Gotcha.
Listen, so to wrap up, here's what I want to ask. I've put my keys to the season of winning the cup out there. Eric's put it out there. What are your top 3, maybe 4 keys to the season, to the Panthers winning the Stanley Cup next season?
Well, right off the bat would be health. This team's got to stay healthy. We can't have another, God forbid, Aaron Ekblad injury, taking away a key player. So staying injury-free will be number 1. Number 2, I'd like to see the Panthers improve a little bit more on special teams, penalty killing and power play. We saw great streaks where the Panthers power play was, they led the NHL in goals for a lot of the year. So they're able to generate the offense. But to have that dominant power play like the Tampa Bay Lightning, which were almost unstoppable, and we saw that more than we wanted, the Panthers and Panther fans and that. So injuries, special teams, and I'd like to see the Panthers have a little bit more productivity from their D-men, as far as and they've got the talent to do that, to be a big part of the offense. And I always say that defensemen are a key, following up the play, starting the play out of their own zone, and being a 5-man. If the Panthers are able to have success at the 5-man attack rather than 5 up to the blue line, and then it's the forwards that have to do everything, the defensemen being involved in that. I think those 3 keys are, for me, if they're able to accomplish those 3, I think they got a good chance of going really far in the playoffs.
Outstanding. All right, so Randy, last thing, and then I'll let you go. I know you've gotten over the years multiple requests for goal calls on a good goal, but I've got one for you. If we're having a particularly bad night, Flying Fluffy's going to need his pancakes now for having a bad night, and the other team scores. You'll get a little bit of play out of that one because everybody knows.
Flying Fluffy needs to eat his pancakes now.
Yep. Something to that effect. Yep, you'll definitely get a response out of that one.
I'll get the eyeball from Goldie. He'll be looking at me if I let that one go, but maybe that's good.
Yeah, no, Goldie's a good guy. I've talked to him a couple of times. My youngest son is autistic. Both my boys are autistic. And he gave me some money from his charity one time a few years ago for my son to get massages and everything. So he's a really good guy. He's a really good guy. Both of you all.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to maybe talking to you again sometime before the season starts or as we go along. Absolutely.
Let's do that. Right towards maybe towards the end of training camp, and we'll see how this team looks on the ice and what the lines are going to look like and D pairs and that kind of stuff, and then we can really analyze and talk about what the expectations are. I'm so excited. I can't wait for training camp. It's going to come very quickly, and it's going to roll right into what should be an excellent season for the Florida Panthers. And hopefully we're going to see the same excitement on home ice as we saw this year.
Yeah. All right, Randy, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Go Panthers.
I want to say thank you as well. We got a lot of Panthers fans on this channel. We need to get some more people subscribed to this channel. And Rand, I appreciate you contributing to that and taking the time to hang out with us. And yeah, we'll do it, like you said, right before training camp or after training camp, and just reassess things. I still think there's another player, another puzzle piece coming in. So I guess we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
Till next time.
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Stu. We'll talk later.
Talk to you later.
All right, bye.